to a starting strength seminar, you're interested in being a coach, maybe you're working with some people, what would you recommend in terms of going forward? I can think of two kinds of people: a person that's a person who's wanting to become a coach, do the evaluation, maybe they failed, or you haven't tried yet. What do you recommend a person to do to become a coach?
If you want to become a coach, you're going to have to prepare to become a coach. All right. What's your college background?
It's not science, not sciences.
What is it?
I have a master's degree in divinity.
Nice. Go with the seminary. Like you.
Yeah, it's
Like
real
Jordy.
helpful in the weight room, isn't it?
No, look, make it easy. Hold on. Can I do a super fast
Please
answer? So easy.
help
This is
me
such an
with
easy.
this
This is such
deadlift.
an easy answer, right? What makes you better at deadlifting? To deadlift. What makes you better at coaching? Coach everybody and get your hands on, man. Coach, go volunteer your time at Boys and Girls Club, volunteer your time at high school, train homeless guys, don't train your wife, train your aunt and
How
uncle.
far along
right?
are you?
Good. Train everybody
How
you
far
can
along
with
are
this
you
stuff.
on your linear progression?
I've been doing this for about 5-6 months.
Keep going.
Yeah.
You're going to learn more from training yourself at first than any other way.
Yeah.
We tell people this all the time. If you want to be a starting strength coach, you're going to have to probably have completed the process of the novice progression yourself, personally, because until you do that, you don't really know what we're doing, and you certainly don't know what to expect from the person that you're coaching, because you haven't done it yourself.
Yep. You have to have trained yourself. You have to have trained 10 to 20 at a bare minimum people all the way through their starting strength linear progression. You have to have read the books. That's the blue book. So starting strength basic barbell training, 3rd edition, and then you have to have read practical programming. I would read Rip's forum from front to back, go all the way back to the archives, read it all the way to the front. I would watch all the videos, read as many of the articles as you can get through, and then I would contact a local coach and see if you can pal around with them or intern with them, just to make sure that your coaching chops are up to speed. And at that point, you've put yourself in a good position for, hey, I think I've got what it takes to pass the platform evaluation and then pass the written test. But the problem is people don't do that. People have kind of gone through an LP, but not. They've taken some people who came in their gym saying, I want strength training, through a novice LP, but everybody else they didn't do that with, right? They didn't read the forum. They haven't read the books in depth enough. And so when they get here, they're relying on a small amount of practice that they've had doing the thing that they're being tested on, right? And some people can fly with that. They're like, I'm good, I'm adaptable, and that's their thing. But most people crash horribly. And because you haven't seen enough people fuck up, and so you can't fix it. You don't have enough tools in your toolbox, right? You don't have enough resources. You can't tell if is that arm actually vertical, or is that, you haven't seen enough. So that's just what it requires. And I think that applies to anybody, science background or not. Because even if you don't have a science background, if you read the books and you actually look up all the terms you don't know, now you have a science background. Sufficient for this certification.
So we talked a lot about food as a recovery agent. Outside of Jordan's website, obviously, what are some good educational nutrition resources out there? None?
Oh, it's like asking me outside of starting strength, what other books about weightlifting should you read?
Barbell training.
There aren't any.
Yeah, there really aren't.
There aren't any.
For nutrition.
That's why we're here.
You want to know about nutrition and strength training? It's like a black art, in a way, which is cool, but need more.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. All right, Dale.
All right, so let's say hypothetically there's a young man around 21, 22 years old, and he's put on 70 to 90 pounds in about a year.
Hashtag asking for a friend. Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Asking for.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
This
basically,
certainly doesn't apply to anyone here in this
his
room, but-
no, his doctor is pretty much in shock that he would go from 14.1 to 26.5% body fat, because that's basically like AIDS and cancer but worse. And his mom thinks that his bones might grow too big for his body. his
Stick out,
yeah,
sticking out of the
And,
skin, right?
and his classmates and so-called acquaintances think that his butt is way too big.
Right.
How does he go about living life without being a total outcast? But, okay. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
look,
And
You
not
know,
worrying people that he cares
if
about.
if this particular guy is in fact kind of a chubby little fuck, okay, maybe he ought to tighten his diet up a little bit, okay? Because we don't want you to grow a big old giant glommy ass with little bumps all over it, okay? We don't want that to happen. Not speaking to you, of course, but you may have gone a little overboard with the
gallon of milk a day.
with the gallon of milk a day, and the answers are in my famous article called "A Clarification," that's on the website that I find myself posting in response to about 1/3 of the new posts on my Q&A recently, which discussed in that article. You've misinterpreted something, all right? Read the article, all right? Reese.
So this is the most common question I get from clients. What this sort of training does for your heart health. I was wondering what you guys say to your clients when they ask that question in regards to weight training and heart health, and why it's sufficient enough for your heart health rather than going out and
have
doing
you
cardio.
got the numbers on that?
Numbers on heart health.
Yeah, cardiac effects of weight training.
Well,
Blood pressure,
do you want me to
heart rate.
Okay. All right. So in response to blood pressure, the overall net effect of resistance training alone without any cardiovascular exercise is to lower systolic and diastolic blood pressure by a handful of points. Now, usually this is volume dependent, so the more you train, the more it goes down. And for some folks who actually have high blood pressure, it may not fully correct that. Okay. That being said, resistance training and weight loss for people who are overweight and have high blood pressure seems to work really well. For cardiac output and resting heart rate tends to go down a few points for people who don't have an elevated resting heart rate. That means people who are very out of shape and sedentary. By getting them in the gym, their resting heart rate goes down a lot more than the person who was not previously sedentary. As far as effect on overall mortality and morbidity, those are disease complications from cardiovascular related sources, the data is actually pretty clear that the strongest quartile, as measured by either leg press or hand grip dynamometer or upper body press, has the lowest mortality and lowest morbidity of disease when correcting for things like smoking status, age demographic, and even cardiorespiratory fitness. All right. Now, there is a minimum of cardiorespiratory fitness that you need to attain to basically have the highest survival. All right. But for most folks, that's actually attained from actual training. There's a small group of people who will need to do additional training. The real question people are asking you is, well, what else do I need to do to not die early? That's what they're really asking you. And the answer to that is, well, right now, when you're novice, nothing. For most people, unless they're morbidly obese. If they're morbidly obese, then, hey, that's a different situation. But if they're not, they're going to take the 12 to 16 weeks, run through the novice progression, unfucked with, okay? And then after that, you can add conditioning in. And that's likely going to help them. But, nothing's going to kill you in 12 to 16 weeks that you can't train with. You see what I'm saying? So whatever you have that would actually kill you in that amount of time, you wouldn't be able to train with anyway. So,
In other words, somebody walks in off the street that's not a, BMI of 50, and they say, "What do I need to do besides weight train?" And you say, "Nothing."
yep. You start messing with their diet.
Yes.
That's
it.
your main challenge, and then you can layer on other stuff.
All right.
Can you guys
One of
talk
them
about injuries that immediately would require surgical intervention and would
What's that
not
now?
allow training?
Say again.
So, like, for example, a torn meniscus, you cannot squat.
I don't know that that's true.
People squat with torn meniscus and torn
I've got a
ACLs all the
torn
time.
meniscus, 2 or
Well, that
3
was just an
years.
example. I'm saying, like, any
Yeah, you
possible soft tissue, bony
you
injury.
avulse your
somebody
Yeah,
can't-
you
pec
have
off.
a broken femur. You can't
Right.
train.
You tear your
pelvis is fractured. You can't train.
If you have something that's affecting the structural integrity of your musculoskeletal system such that the leverages have now changed, you can't usually train with those. So that would be a ruptured tendon, a torn muscle, all right? That would be some defect in any of the soft tissues that otherwise change your leverage. You can't train train with those.
Although you can train, right? Like you
Yeah.
can train, you
Can't
just
train
can't.
that.
You can't bench, right? You break your ankle, you can train, you just can't squat.
Now, are you asking about medical conditions that might prevent someone from training, or are you speaking specifically about injuries?
Specifically injuries.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
orthopedic damage that
Yeah,
affects
exactly.
the actual movement pattern you're trying to execute,
Yes.
right?
hernias that are big enough requiring repair, you usually don't want to train on those because you're gonna Valsalva anyway. So you need to get those repaired sooner rather than later. And you
I did for 17 years though, and just poked it in for 17
Oh, yeah,
years.
no,
then for real, and then finally had the surgery.
Yeah, but
But,
at some point
you know.
it's so big that it won't reduce, and that's a emergent situation.
Yeah.
You know,
If you've got bone-on-bone knee,
well,
I know some people that claim to train on that. Thing back here does, right? Dad, but I recommend that you just go ahead and get that fixed, okay? I mean, it's not going to heal up, so get it fixed. We have the technology. A bone-on-bone hip, you really need to get that fixed. It's 2017. One of the few advantages of it being 2017 is that we can fix that now. All right? Just get that fixed. Right? But, yeah, that's basically the deal.
All right, so my question's to do with programming. So I deal with chronic injuries with my hips. I've had really shit hips since I was in football and everything.
What's wrong with them?
I'm getting an MRI probably pretty soon. We're pretty sure. I think I have some sort of labrum tear, but we're not really sure.
Okay.
But wait, you said it hurt for how long?
Oh, it's been off and on forever. I'll be good for like a month. My squats are going up. Something happens, and like every other step I take, just sharp pain. Goes away, then it's achy for a week, and it just repeats the cycle. So with that said, I constantly.
You don't have an MRI diagnosis.
No, I don't. So I need to go. I know
All right,
that's the next step. Get that.
probably need
But
to.
in the meantime, I've been able to increase my bench press and overhead press pretty steadily. But whenever I reset my squat and deadlift, I reset it to get everything feeling better. I can continually rise my bench press and stuff. At what point is it a good idea to just go on with the advancement? Go to a.
Your lifts will change in advancement at different rates.
Okay.
So you don't go from being a novice to an intermediate on
Yeah.
all 4 lifts on the same day.
Yeah.
So you'll move to intermediate programming usually on press and bench first anyway,
Yeah.
because there's less
Well,
muscle mass. And so you just progress your bench and press like a more advanced lifter, like the more
So
advanced
would it
lifter
be
you
okay
are.
to be like an advanced program for bench and a
Yes.
complete novice for squats?
Yes,
Happens all
that's
the
exactly what it'll be.
All right, cool.
And then
Happens
you'll
all the
do
time.
novice linear progression on your hips and
Yeah.
and your deadlift, right? By the way, does the deadlift bother your hips?
Yeah.
It does. Okay. It doesn't bother mine. My hips are fucked up too.
Yeah, I do have MRI evidence of bilaterally torn hip labrums. I was wondering, so I moved to California and my hip started hurting. So I thought it was just California, and that's what Rip said. But the place that I was training at was uneven. The whole thing was on a slant, and I thought it'd be okay to just squat and deadlift on that for a while. It turns out it's not. But so my left hip started hurting, so I got an MRI, bilaterally torn hip labrums, and the radiologist was like, yeah, these probably been torn for years. You just now are symptomatic, so figure out why you're symptomatic. So then I started squatting on a flat surface. I reduced my frequency until it settled down, and I haven't had it come back. I had an all-time squat PR pretty recently as well. So yeah, I would definitely recommend contacting Dr. John Patrizio on this. So we had a pretty extensive discussion on the recovery rates and how people do with labral tears, if that's what it is. But you're going to need an MRI.
So I've been talking to some more experienced lifter friends of mine,
Okay.
more self-taught, along the same lines. And one of the things I hear about this program specifically is that it can go. You can go like T-Rex mode because of the emphasis on squat and deadlifting over
What's
like
that mean?
arm and exist. Like you get big quads,
Small arms.
And so they caution me. No, they caution me that I should do a higher volume or a higher intensity or more accessory exercises for like bicep curl, stuff like that.
Right.
As opposed, to just running it. And after the seminar this weekend, my whole body's hurting. So like I feel like that's probably not true. Because I am working those muscles. But I don't know if you had response to that. Specifically.
That hasn't been our experience.
Okay. That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Well,
Okay.
the criticism stems from the idea, well, you squat every day first and you deadlift 2 and then you only bench or press 3 times a week. That doesn't take into consideration you're doing chins and pull-ups regularly, right? So the actual number of slots, lower body slots per week, if you are doing 3 squats per week plus deadlift and power clean, so that's 5 lower body slots. Then you have bench, press, and bench, or press, bench, and press. That's 3 plus chin-ups and pull-ups, so that's 5 as well there. Plus you do curls, which we talk about in the book. I mean, so I'm just saying, from a volume equating standpoint, they're effectively even. Now they say, well, all right, that's a novice plan, but later on you need more volume for upper body, right? You need more volume for upper body. Well, to that I say that's bullshit. My personal programming right now, I have 6 upper body slots and 6 lower body slots, and the volume is equivalent from both. Okay, and I'm not saying use my anecdotal experience to tell your friends that they're full of it, but I don't necessarily look like a T-Rex either, right? Do you agree? Yeah. So, and I'll just
Although you do need to gain about 30 pounds.
I'm just glad it's 30 now because it used to be 100.
Yeah. Well, that was when you were weighing 135 when
Right. I'm at
we first ran into you.
I was 176 pounds, competed as a 181, and Rip goes, you need to be a good 275.
A little nasty.
But
yeah.
But the other thing is
I
that
still think you'd be a hell of a 275. You'd squat,
Like
900
pounds.
900.
how many more dates will they give me? A bunch of dudes. I got into this for women, and it's just been dudes. So this is your fault.
That hadn't been my experience.
That might be just be me.
Justin.
Yeah, so you guys were just talking about like osteoarthritis, and I know there's a big population that has that, especially weightlifters, and as well as just people.
What?
Osteoarthritis.
Osteoarthritis.
Weightlifters have more osteoarthritis than the general public.
Well, there's just a big population that has it in
What?
weightlifting, but also like desk jockeys and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys heard anything about like stem cells? Like I know there's some talk about stem cells being used to like grow cartilage versus like surgery alternatives.
Sorry.
Kirkham just had
Put it in his neck. He got
stem cells.
He had like
in his
pin
cervical.
firing
No, he had stem cells.
Oh, did he go out of the country for that?
No, they're doing it in Salt Lake.
They went down his.
For a research
I got a
cohort?
picture
yeah,
of it.
So the
on my
problem with
phone.
stem cells right now is not
Yeah,
that
I've got that same picture.
I could to be clear, I have no idea if they actually have a lot of promise because we haven't studied them very very well. We've got a lot of laws that are compromising our ability to study them in this country, and I have not seen oodles and oodles of data suggesting.
And there probably won't be any more data on that than there are on steroids right now because they're difficult.
Yeah.
They've made it difficult to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we find out soon, and then I'm also hopeful that it's positive because it could help
Yeah.
a lot of people.
It would be real nice.
But interestingly, in general, the more active you are, the more exercise that you do, the less pain you have from even radiographic diagnoses of osteoarthritis. So when you have somebody with severe osteoarthritis, you want to get them to be active, and you want to get them to train because their pain will actually decrease just from that, versus trying to find the right pain cocktail to give them, So we'll
Patrick?
find out.
So if my squat form is good, is it
I don't know that we can assume that.
okay? Sorry.
I had it once, buddy.
If my rack position is fairly good,
Right?
then why would I have bilateral elbow pain?
If you're in the press.
No.
No, you think your squat is causing your elbow pain. And it very well may be. I don't know I didn't look at your rack position.
His
Pain
his
is-
elbows are down, his wrists are straight.
Well,
It looks
and
pretty good.
you may have fixed them for him yesterday.
No, he's a pretty good squatter in general. We see him every day. Squats
Well,
are fine.
As a general rule, tendinitis is hard to get rid of once it's established. Okay, you may have good squat form now in terms of your grip, and that the current grip may not be aggravating your elbows, but if they're pre-aggravated from a previous form error, they tend to stay that way a while. I mean, my knees I've had quadriceps tendinitis for about 30 years.
Is that from Murph?
It's from all kinds of stupid things that I've done. And no, Murph was not among them. I was never that stupid. Okay? I've been stupid, but I've never was that stupid. But I'll tell you how stupid I was. I came in the gym one day, a long time ago, and I had this program written down. And,
I know this story.
And this day, I was supposed to do 5:15 for a set of 5, right? And I was overtrained like I normally was. So I take 5:15 out of the rack, and I got a double with it. And it was a bone-on-bone limit double. And I told my spotters to give me 3 forced reps so I could get the set of 5. Now that is stupid.
You gotta read.
That is stupid.
You gotta read his training logs sometime. If you ever, you could publish some of those. So
funny.
the dates are all in
Yeah.
Norse code, like Norse code, or like by the zodiac. Shit.
So it's an amusing little record of having learned the hard way.
Got kicked by a
all
horse
of this
today,
shit, Yeah, got kicked in the
still
head.
trained.
So I know from experience, tendinitis is very difficult to get rid of once you get it embedded. Maybe the stem cells thing would help tendinitis. I don't know. Maybe PRP would deal with tendinitis. I don't know. I just quit worrying about it a long time ago since everything I did didn't work. Okay, so I would suggest that you continue to squat with the corrected grip position, corrected carry position in the back, and see what happens to your elbows.
Yeah.
It's going to take more than a couple of weeks to go away.
Well, it only seems to bother me though when the weight gets heavy.
It's there all the time. It's just not bothering you until the weight gets heavy. And it may be, and probably the natural history of that will be that it bothers you less and less at lighter and lighter weights, only bothers you at heavy weights, and finally you don't notice it one day. That's probably what will happen.
It usually goes away as enigmatically as it came on. That's almost
I had
always the
plantar
case.
fasciitis one time when we bought the building. The gym is in. We remodeled it. I was on a ladder every day for about 4 months. And I had plantar fasciitis so goddamn bad I couldn't walk. God almighty. And one day it just was gone. People spend fortunes trying to get this thing fixed, and it just went away. Yep. And I've had elbow pain do exactly the same thing. I've had DeQuere veins and this thing right here bothering the hell out of me. One day, God, it didn't hurt today. I didn't even notice it didn't hurt. It just comes and goes. Tendinitis is pretty weird stuff, Have you tried the chin-up protocol?
No, not really.
Well, maybe you ought to do that. Because that seems to work basically every time it's tried. Give that a shot. Why have you not tried that?
Just because I feel like I just try to suck it up, or
So
I just don't want to interrupt the other training to the best of my
I
abilities.
don't know that it'll interrupt your other training. It certainly won't interrupt your squatting or your deadlifting. Especially not after might bother your deadlifts a little bit because of grip fatigue for a couple of weeks, but you'll get used to that. Well, you've read my chin-up elbow tendinitis protocol. Try it. It probably will fix it. All right.